We're going to get back onto the main ship. Ripley and Bishop are going to have a moment of respect. You know, you were a good android. We're going to work together in the future. Everything's good. Oh, no! Bam! Oh, Bishop gets absolutely stabbed through the back. I hate, this is the most unsettling thing, I hate the milk blood of the aliens. He's
Brother.
like, coffee, he's like, the
Brother.
milk blood. I don't like it.
And it's so funny because I feel like Ian Holm and Lance Henriksen both were like, I don't like milk. Like, why do I have to play the guy who needs to chug milk and spit it out? She grabs this guy, rips him in half, and like throws his body parts on two different directions. Nick, so much milk.
It's just nonstop milk, and then you see his the half of his torso, and it's like tubes and milk everywhere. I hate it. I can watch horror. I can watch body horror. It's totally fine with me. But this milk blood pisses me off. Like, I absolutely hate it.
Hey, what's poppin', corn dogs? Get ready to get face hugged and have your ears massaged by this podcast. All aboard a spaceship in some far distant future and saddle up, load the gun, because we're coming in hot. This time, you will hear the screams in space because we are screaming into our sequel of our franchise of the year. It is happening. It is popping off with Captain Pop. I am the Mr. Buddy Bucket of the Butter Brigade, and I'm ready to lead this platoon into some danger. And right next to me, packing some serious heat, is my best friend in the world. He is the numero uno amigo, the Xenomorph catcher himself. It is Nick, Trusty, Crusty, Justy, Justice, coming in with me.
Oh, well, thank you for the intro. That was a new one. Crusty, trusty, maybe a little musty. We don't know, though. James, thank you, as always, for bringing me in here. Yeah, I'm the chief corn dog. I'm here. I'm on the other side of the country from you, but man, I wish I was there just to give you a big old face hug. Because like you said, this is our sequel to our franchise of the year, Alien. And this isn't Alien 2. It is just simply Aliens, which I kind of like. I like that's the direction that it went. Yeah, I'm here. My green swag. It's Alien.
Yeah, you're all greened out.
I got my green drink here. I brought a green cocktail.
Whoa, what is that? Are you theming on a cocktail?
I am. First time ever. We do first here on this podcast. First time ever. I got some glow sticks in there. Hard to tell because we do lighting here because we are trying our best. And the lighting looks good and the video quality looks great. And you would know that if you were subscribed to us on YouTube at Just Play It Podcast, at Just Play It Pod on Instagram, Just Play It Pod on X, Just Play It Podcast on all of your podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, we got you. You want to listen to it on Spotify, we got you. But we love the YouTubes. We love the comments. James produces the shorts, the videos. It's a great time. You need to just subscribe. You just do it, my guy or gal.
Easy as sipping a smooth drink. Nick, what is in that green drink?
This is simply a vodka soda with green food coloring, and I found out green food coloring is more staining than I thought that it was.
That reminds me, I think I got some alien blood in my fridge. Let me see if I can. Okay. But you got to be careful because it is, wait for it, super acidic. Oh my God, man. Look at the effects. Oh my God, look at these effects. This is not liquid IV.
Madness.
Oh,
Whoa.
My goodness. Will I be okay drinking this? Let's see.
Probably not. Oh, the humanity. You got to tune into YouTube to see this, guys.
This is not piss. It is yellow food coloring because that's all we had in the house. I don't know why yellow. What the hell? This is just a bubbly with some yellow food coloring. But when I saw you theming out, I said, hey, I'll join fun and I'm going to drink. I was like, you know what? It's not green like an alien or the green lighting that we see in these movies. It's the acid blood.
Hell yeah.
That's what we do here. We bring the fun on the Just Play It podcast because that's what this is all about. We're here having fun. And you know what, Nick? This sequel was super fun. It was so fun.
It's a great way to describe it.
That might be part of my 3 words. Who knows? And if you're wondering what the 3 words are, it's our gut reaction description for the movie. Like all movies, we got to hit the audience with our pre-pop points, followed by those 3 words. This is our gut reaction score, hot off the press, fresh off a watch. This is a first watch for me. How about for you?
Same here. All of the aliens. I don't know how they never made it around to me, but this is it.
You're reviewing this movie first, so I'm going to need to see them pre-pop points first. And if you are ready, I will count you down on 3, 2, 1. Hit us. Nick, aliens with a $sign. That's going to be a little hint of what's coming up next. You're giving an 8.0. And Nick, your 3 words. Hit us.
Brand new franchise.
Boom, boom, boom. Let's go, baby.
We're hitting it. All right, James, your turn. I need that pre-pop score, and then I'm going to need your 3 words. I'm counting you up from 1 because I'm different like that. 1, 2, 3. James, aliens. And you put your score inside of a little alien egg. See it on YouTube. And you're giving this an 8.4. James, your 3 words.
Super fun sequel. There was so much I can go with
Love
my
it.
3 words, but this movie was super fun. Just to remind the audience, our final scores for Alien, you gave it an 8.7. I gave it an 8.4. This one you're hitting with an 8, and I'm hitting with an 8.4. The reason I'm going 8.4 is because I'm kind of playing it safe because I felt like it was just as good as the first one. But then I had times where I was like, I think the first one's better. It's just such a different movie. There's things from the first one I thought, wow, what a perfect, just low budget, made a big splash horror movie that was super influential for filmmakers. And then this movie comes in completely different. I had such a fun time watching it, such a different experience. And I was going to say, this might hit in the 7.5 to the 8.4. It's a little bit below, but then I was like, I'm just going to throw it the same and we'll see how the conversation goes and if I get swayed one way or the other. But I was tempted to go 8.3, just a tick below the first one. But Nick, what about your 8? What's going on there?
Same thing. I'm giving myself room to go up. On first watch, I think it is lower than number 1. But again, my words are brand new franchise. This feels like what I think of when I think of Alien. It really reminds me of the original Mad Max and then the subsequent Mad Maxes, where that first one's tone is so different. And then the subsequent ones get really fun and actiony and has all the iconic, moments. And so it's very different. Not in a bad way, but I'm giving myself room to go up. I think 8 is its floor. I pre-popped it at its floor, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I agree. For some reason, I thought I gave Alien, the OG, somewhere in the 7s. And I looked at our sheet. I was like, oh, thank God I gave it an 8.4. I was like, why would I give it a 7s? So I was like, maybe this is also 7s, but it's a unique experience going from Alien to Aliens. So this one is not directed by Ridley Scott. This one's actually directed by James Cameron, who, Nick, technically is a friend of the show. I'll give you a prize if you can remember where he popped up in the credits.
Oh, I know this.
You actually brought this up. This is the early days.
Yeah, I know. I do know that before we ever put out an episode, we did a pilot episode of Avatar, and I could say that was
true.
Off the pod friend of the show. But I do remember James Cameron coming up, and I forget where. Remind me.
Episode 2 of our podcast, Escape from New York. He was this is his credit on IMDb. It says director of photography, special visual effects, and matte artwork. He was a crew guy before. And when we get into how this movie got made, I'll kind of lightly talk about how he found himself into the director's chair. But I mean, it feels like a brand new franchise, Nick, because we have a brand new director in the chair. And it was just as good. It was not a disaster. It was not a bad second movie. Some people say this is the greatest sequel of all time. So, we're not watching some bullshit.
Yeah.
And Nick, penning this movie, it is also written by James Cameron. I feel obligated to read over the writing credits on IMDb because they're super weird and complicated.
As always.
I had no signs that Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett were actively working on this movie, but they obviously have writing credits for based on characters created by. And then with the story by, we have James Cameron and A&D, David Giler, and then the ampersand Walter Hill, because David Giler and Walter Hill they're part of Brandywine Productions, so they're a writing team. I didn't find anything that they were the ones actively writing the story. I'm sure they were still providing notes because I'm sure they're still producers on it. But James Cameron has a sole screenplay by credit because he did write this whole treatment for this movie, and I'll get into that when we talk about how it got made. It's basically a jumping off point from the last movie.
Yeah, it feels like James Cameron saw this movie, by his own words, he was a fanboy of it. We know from that credit earlier, he's a special effects guy. He's a crew guy. He probably loved what they were doing. And he said, now that I have a platform to be able to do this, I really, really would love to make a sequel. If Ridley Scott's not making one, I think these character properties deserve to be on screen more. I'm going to basically write a version of this that I think audiences would love. And at the time, he's doing Terminator. He's doing, I'm trying to remember, a bunch of other action stuff. And he thought, wow, this property.
The Abyss, I believe.
Dude, The Abyss is great. We should add that to the list. And so he's saying, I think I could do a lot with this. So it's kind of cool when someone gets their hands on something or is able to get their hands on something that's such a cool concept and iconic. Because that first one was already iconic, and he's going, I'm going to take this on.
It was one of those things where James Cameron was a fan sitting in the movie theater watching the original Alien, and now he gets to live out a dream of making his own version of that story as the director and one of the writers. So that is exciting for old Jimmy Cam. Nick, with him behind the camera, who is in front of the camera on this one?
In front of the camera, we have returning Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, and then some newcomers, because as we know from Alien, we did not have many survivors. We only had one other person, I think, from the first one, or thing from the first one, which is Jonesy the cat, does make a reappearance. Mm-hmm. But our other top billing is Michael Biehn and Carrie Henn.
I think it's
it's Michael Biehn. Is it Bean? Is it Bean? Okay.
Michael Biehn.
I was going back to Spanish class. I'm like, that's Biehn.
Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn.
Michael Bueno.
He was good.
He was the bean. Nick, the dollar signs. This ended up having an $18.5 million budget estimated and grossed $131 million, which is a little bit better than the first one, I want to say. Yeah, the first one was 109. This one's 131. Slightly bigger budget. Slightly less percentage on the return, but still a success for 20th Century Fox Studios.
Yeah, and honestly, all things considered, a fairly small budget. If you're considering a studio throwing money behind a franchise, well, not quite a franchise yet, but a sequel to such a successful movie, and a guy like James Cameron coming to your office saying, I want to do this big. 18.5 is considered still a pretty small budget for 86, or at least mid-size, I'd say, for something that's so effects heavy.
Of all the videos I saw that were going through the history of this movie, they were name dropping movies that came out at a similar time and had not similar budgets. For instance, Columbia's Ghostbusters, which came out 2 years prior, had twice the amount of budget. They had a $30 million budget. So they're kind of just like, why is our budget so small? Fox.
Again, for something so effects heavy, so practically driven. We talked about it in the original Alien, how much care was taken to the set and the props. So,
and you know what's funny? I feel like all of these movies from the 80s and 90s and maybe even late 70s and early 2000s that are so influential are just those movies that the studios never wanted to give a chance and just said, go out there with this shoestring budget, and if this fails, it fails. Like we saw that with like Robert Zemeckis and Romancing the Stone. Like they wanted him to fail. And this one, they're like, here, you asked for this amount of money. Why don't you do it for this amount of money? And then they're like, okay, we're going to walk away. And just all these odds stacked against you. It's always those iconic movies that had to go through hell that have ended up being like the most important movies ever.
Yeah. And then the big budget ones, a lot of times, they don't necessarily flop, but they feel like it was almost exorbitant in a way, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you. There's something about a crew that's going through it, or guys having to shoestring things together, or use those creative muscles to figure out how are we going to use these props? How are we going to make this practical? That really gets things going.
And speaking about getting things going, I'm just going to talk about how this movie came to be, like I usually do. I should make a segment for this at this point.
You should.
Called Captain Pop's Story Times. Come around the microwave fire and pop your corn, and I'll tell you a little tale about this.
Stick your head in this microwave.
It really injure yourself in this story, because how aliens got made. Here we go. So, Nick, remember when we were talking about Alien and you're like, why did it take 7 years for a sequel to come out? Well, let me tell you. Something called development hell. Studios, Nick, they always get in the way, and they're weird, and they have people in charge that make very cold takes, and then there's some really cool studio heads, and you have some cool people in the industry, and then these guys are like, I'm going to buy the studio and do racketeering and send money to Iran. And, I got fired because I'm a bad person. It's weird. It's weird out there. So Fox was going under new management at the time, and we've actually talked about this during our podcast on Romancing the Stone and on Big Trouble in Little China, specifically 20th Century Fox. So Sherry Lansing was the head of 20th Century Fox, and then she resigned in 1982, and then Joe Wiseman was in there, and then Lawrence Gordon comes in the July of 1984, and then there's this guy, Norman Levy, I think was his name. Apparently he was also like brought in by one of those other guys that bought the studio, and then he was also like the president when Sherry Lansing was there, and they're just like, who's in power?
Jumping in here, fellas. Norman Levy was named the president of distribution at Fox in 1980. During this time, he frequently disagreed with Lansing about which films to back, which ultimately led her to resign from the studio head position. This power struggle was happening in the midst of new ownership when a wealthy oil man named Marvin Davis bought the studio in 1981. According to the Hollywood Reporter article titled Mark Rich, Marvin Davis, Rupert Murdoch, and Hollywood's Slickest Deal from 2013, it states, in 1981, Davis made a deal to buy the venerable but troubled 20th Century Fox movie studio for $722 million. At the time, Davis didn't disclose the source of his funding. Davis also never noted that he had a silent partner who would own half the studio, Mark Rich. In 1983, Rich and his business partner, Pincus Green, were indicted by the federal government on 65 criminal charges, including evading $48 million in taxes, wire fraud, racketeering, and trading oil with Iran in violation of an international embargo. Rich's response was to get on a plane and flee to Europe, eventually landing in Switzerland, where the U.S. could not extradite him. To say Fox was going through some managerial changes in the 1980s might be a bit of an understatement. We'll simply call it weird times.
This is weird. Before Lansing, there was Alan Ladd Jr., who was a president during the first Alien movie when it came out, and was an advocate for a sequel. But then he left over disagreements with Fox chairman Dennis Stanfill. He was like, hey, I want my crew to get bonuses, or I want to have a little bit more creative say in the movies that I have put out there, such as Alien or Star Wars. And Dennis Stanfill was like, your crew doesn't need extra money. I do. Probably. I don't know. So per the Frame Voyager's YouTube video titled Cameron's Complicated Production of Aliens, and a lot of YouTube videos I saw said a lot of the same stuff, but I'm going to cite this guy because it was the first video I saw. He said that the studio conducted accounting analysis, and I think they called this like creative budgeting or creative accounting, and they make claims that the original Alien was a $2 million loss for the company, despite only costing $11 million and bringing in $100 million. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I guess I don't understand anything about numbers, apparently.
It's called cooking the books, my friend, to write it off as a loss. That is crooked accounting right there. Creative accounting is cheating on your taxes. That's what that is. If you ever get a tax guy who's like, we're going to do some creative accounting, get out of there. Just get out of there.
Happy tax season, everybody. So Brandywine Production, which is Walter Hill, David Geiler, and Gordon Carroll, all producers from the first movie, They end up suing Fox, and then we get a recount. And then they admit, okay, it was a $4 million profit, which again, I don't get because it would cost $11 million. It got you 100. Is there that much marketing? Is there that much? Do they count residuals? Were there residuals? I don't know. Apparently, I don't know anything about numbers or calculators.
Well, it's where you start writing off a whole bunch of other business debt onto that line item. And then you count it as a loss. That'd be like me saying, oh, yeah, I totally lost money on this deal, but I also charged a bunch of vacations to my business account. And now my business account is in the red for the year. So I'm going to write it off as a loss on my taxes. That's fraud, friends. Don't do that.
More like 20th Century Fraud Studios. Oh, only these jokes on JPI. So after this lawsuit from Brandywine and the recount, and they admit it actually was a profit, 1983 rolls around. So then Fox greenlights a sequel. So that took 4 years off the bat, just getting it to become an idea, because we had a bunch of different presidents kind of like playing musical chairs. And then they're like, it was a loss. And then now they're like, okay, all right, we could do it. So Gail Ann Hurd, who is a producer of Aliens and the Terminator movies. And she is also one of Cameron's former wives. I think she was the second one. They said that they were casting for Terminator and they were going to start shooting in the summer of 1983. And they wanted to go for Arnold Schwarzenegger. But friend of the show, Nick, Dino De Laurentiis, again, I'll give you cookies if you can tell me what project he was from.
I don't remember. I remember the name.
So he had an option on Arnold to do Conan the Destroyer, which was the sequel to Conan the Barbarian. He was the reason why Maximum Overdrive became a thing. So he kind of self-produced the Stephen King movie that I believe to this day is still our lowest rated movie that we have ever seen. But despite that stain on the IMDb, Dino De Laurentiis is arguably one of the most famous Italian producers and filmmakers ever. Also, Nick, TIL, today I learned that he's Giada's grandpa. You know Giada on the Food Network? She's Giada De Laurentiis. Do you not know Giada?
I don't watch the Food Network.
She's like old school, like cable Food Network, but she's still around, you know?
Gotcha.
Like, not old, but like your wife is going to know. Like, okay. Emily's going to know. Elizabeth is going to know. They're not going to be like, they're not going to care. Only I'm like, wow, that's so cool because I know who Dino De Laurentiis is and I know Giada. Useless fun fact, but here we go. We're going to carry on. James Cameron's going to end up directing The Terminator. Now that we have Arnold Schwarzenegger tied up in Conan the Destroyer, there's now this 9-month window that he's unavailable. So that wasn't enough time to do another movie, according to Gail Ann Hurd, but it was enough time for Cameron to do a writing assignment. So he wrote a draft and it was incomplete. It was at about 90 pages long at the time, and it was still in the second act. But Fox loved it. So according to Hurd, they did the unthinkable. And they said, we're going to wait until you're available to finish the draft. Because a lot of studios are just like, you're not available, we're moving on to the next guy. But they love Cameron's draft so much, they said, go do The Terminator, and we want you to come back and finish this. Also, bonus major side quest, you're going to direct The Terminator, and tell you what, if you do a good job at directing that, you can also direct Aliens. So this is when Lawrence Gordon was the president of Fox Production, was all for the Alien sequel. Now, Nick, your pre-pops when you threw out the $sign in this timeline here. So 1983, they're doing Terminator. And I think this happened circa 1984 when James Cameron, either before or after this moment, was trying to sell himself as the director. What did he do that was baller?
Well, James, I'm just going to read Cameron's words in an article from The Independent from late 2022. He confirmed a long suspected fan theory or a story, like a
urban legend.
That's the words. Thank you. And he said, I had lunch with a big shot producer when I was about to start Aliens who said, this is a no-win for you. If your movie's good, Ridley will get the credit. If it's bad, it's all you. It's a career ender. And I said, yeah, but I like it. So basically, Cameron said, yeah, but it'd be pretty sick, right? which I just respect the hell out of. That's some steel balls on the guy. He said, I was maybe a dumbass fanboy, but I could see it so clearly in my head that I just had to go make it. And yes, the urban legend is true. I was in a meeting with the studio head and the executive producers, and I turned my script over on the blank side of the last page. I wrote alien, then I drew an S on the end, then I drew 2 vertical lines through the S and held it up to show them that it was aliens with a $sign at the end. Baller move.
Very too short and Kesha of him. I'm shocked that wasn't the official title type script. And I'm wondering, like, was that true, or was it just kind of like a thing where Cameron was like, I'll just say it was true because everyone says it's so cool, but I'll believe it.
Hey, it's a cool industry story, and I'm going to choose to believe it.
Ridley Scott, like we said, was the director of the first one, and I didn't do a whole bunch of deep research on it, but in my research on this movie, it just seemed like the studio didn't want to work with Ridley Scott again because he was difficult to work with. I don't know if that's with the cast or with the crew or with the studio themselves, but I do recall when we were talking about Alien, how he would be a little bit kind of like an old school director, just a little dickish and kind of rubbing people the wrong way. And Sigourney Weaver's like, why are you yelling at me? I'm just a girl. This is my first big movie. Relax, guy. But he's still one of the greatest. So James Cameron comes into the chair, and just to kind of paint his roadmap, he actually worked for Roger Corman at his Venice-based studio, and they did do this movie called Galaxy of Terror, and he was the production designer on that film. And if you watch the trailer, you can see how it's such a B-movie stepping stone to Aliens. The trailer on IMDb is incredible, by the way. I'm thinking we have to just pull it up and watch it, actually.
What's it called?
Prepare yourself for the ultimate battle. Galaxy of Terror. Stranded astronauts Edward Albert and Erin Moran, trapped in a living maze of terror on a world spawned by their darkest nightmares. It's been waiting 1 billion years to scare you to death. Galaxy of Terror.
Galaxy of Terror. Did you clock Robert Englund in there, by the way?
I didn't. I was just too... I was so... Oh my gosh. Okay. We may at some point need to watch that.
I was considering it. So Cameron was the production designer on that film. You saw the trailer, so you can kind of see like, oh, this kind of just looking at this weird fever dream 30-second trailer, it does look like it's a B-rate version of Alien, because it's like
absolutely
people in space, they're in these tight industrial corridors, they're running from this alien, the alien's kind of picking them off. Fun fact, Nick, Bill Paxton, who plays Private Hudson in this movie, was a set dresser on Galaxy of Terror, and that's how he ended up being an actor in a lot of James Cameron's movies.
We love Bill Paxton. I love Bill Paxton.
Who doesn't love Bill Paxton? Rest in peace. We have some sort of preliminary experience with Galaxy of Terror. Cameron is a fan of this movie. They like Terminator. They love his script. So they're like, let's do this. So then we had the budget talks between James Cameron, his girlfriend, maybe almost wife at the time, Gail Ann Hurd, and the studio. So Hurd said, hey, we could do it for $15 million. And the studio said, we think this will cost $35 million. How about you do it on $12 million? And Cameron and Hurd were like, we're out. We quit. Like, we're done.
Yeah.
So then Fox folded and Cameron and Hurd are back in, baby. James Cameron, his approach to this film was, we're doing a sequel, not a remake. So this is going to tie into your 3 words very close to home, I'll say. He said, we're not doing a gothic horror film. We're doing a combat movie. And this was out of respect and out of admiration for the first film. Cameron said he didn't want to do a clone. He wanted to make something new. So he basically kept the idea of the life stages of the aliens, and he thought that was cool to kind of explore the biology side of that and the character of Ellen Ripley. That's it. He's like, I want those 2 things in my movies, and then I want to expand and build the world beyond that. So Sigourney Weaver was like, cool. this is all about Ripley. And here's my notes on what she would and wouldn't do. And otherwise, you nailed it. I'm down. But Fox originally didn't want Sigourney Weaver because she was asking for a lot of pay, apparently. And then they asked James Cameron to write a draft without the Ripley character. And James Cameron, again, said, nah, I quit. And then Fox folded again and said, okay, it'll be about Ripley.
I mean, come on, what are we doing here? Basically, she played her cards. She said, hey, if you're going to want to do this as a sequel, you're going to need me in it, and I'm going to know my value and know my worth and put my number out there, and you need to meet it. And like you said, Fox eventually did, and good on James Cameron for standing tall as well and not bending to the studios. It's just so funny to me when, we talk about it all the time, but the studios want to take creative decisions, and it's like, you're in a suit, guy. You don't do creative decisions. It's like when the owner of an NFL team wants to make personnel decisions. Like, you own the team. Let the people who know what's happening on the ground make the decisions for the team.
Yeah.
And so it's very annoying. That's why the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl. Suck it, Cowboy fans.
Don't suck.
Don't suck.
How about that?
Don't let your owner take charge of the operations of things. Don't let studio heads make casting decisions. That's ridiculous. Just meet the demands and make your money.
Don't hate us for speaking the truth. We know you know, Cowboys fans and Fox.
We know.
The movie's greenlit. James Cameron's in. Sigourney Weaver's in. We have our still small budget. We're going to Pinewood Studios out across the pond in London.
Owie.
We have a lot of movies shot over at Pinewood Studios. Too many to list almost at this point. I think the current Avengers movies are being filmed over there right now. But Nick, there was a lot of clashing with the British crew and James Cameron. And James Cameron, I think, is Canadian technically, but James Cameron and the Americans are coming in. And I was shocked at this because every goddamn video I watched mentioned this freaking drama about the tea, about tea time. So tea time, did you hear about this one?
Yeah, I did.
Basically, the British film crews and the crews at Pinewood, which, I technically agree with, but I'm like shocked that that was a thing based on what I know about the movie industry and my experiences in the movie industry. So they would say, hey, at 10 a.m., it's tea time. Like, we're going to have our tea. This lady's going to roll in with a cart. We're going to have tea. At 10 a.m. is like prime work time over here in Hollywood. That's like, we are doing this for 12 hours. You get a 30-minute break or 60-minute break, and then we're going for another 6 hours. All right. We're going 6, break 6. These guys popping tea bags at 10 a.m. They have a long lunch, hit the pub, and only work for a couple more hours and call it a day. And I was like, excuse me? Why the fuck did I not work over at Pinewood? That sounds awesome. But I worked in goddamn Los Angeles where they will just work you to the bone. And they're like, we don't care if you have a family. So I'm actually bitter about that. So I'm Team American Cameron. Damn it. Get to work, you lazy Brits.
Every other culture.
I know.
Like siestas and tea times. I love it. It's like, I personally, I'm a big, like, fucking, exceptionalism, baby. Like, this is why we lead the fucking way. We work our asses off over here. We don't do no tea time, governor.
I would love to have tea time at 10 and have a month off of work to go travel the world. But I live in America. So this caused a big rift in the dynamic with the American crew and the British crew. And it just kind of came to a boiling point where they had to have a meeting where it's like, hey, look, it seems like everyone's trying to make me fail on making this movie. And if you're part of that agenda and you feel like you're hoping for failure, then I just need you to step up and we need to replace you. Because it just kind of became just like a clash of cultures of work ethic and tradition. But, we finally got the thing done. They got through the production. They finished on time. They finished on budget. And apparently, just like that $sign story, Nick, I have a quote from Mr. Cameron here that is just right in line with his no nonsense, like, this is who I am and fuck you guys. So apparently at the end of the production, he said this to the crew. He said, this has been a long and difficult shoot, fraught by many problems. But the one thing that kept me going through it all was the certain knowledge that one day I would drive out of the gate of Pinewood and never come back, and that you sorry bastards would still be here. To this day, he has not returned to Pinewood Studios. That's the last movie he did.
Good on him, man. It's a man of principle.
So that is how the movie got made. And Nick, I think there's nothing left to do but to jump into the log line, and then we can hit our next segment here of Plot Talk. I'm going to go ahead and read this log line. Decades after surviving the Nostromo incident, Ellen Ripley is sent out to reestablish contact with a terraforming colony, but finds herself battling the alien queen and her offspring. A little bit of a third act spoiler there. Could have just left that out, but okay, IMDb. But Nick, we know what happened, and we're going to talk about it all and everything that happened in Plot Talk.
Plot Talk.
So, James, like you said, James Cameron is saying this isn't new. This is a sequel. And where did we leave off with our gal Ripley? From Alien, we left her off in a cryosleep chamber, and that's where we're going to pick up. We got that ominous feel. And there's one thing this movie does carry over. It's not a horror thriller in the same sense, but we do carry that same tension throughout the movie, which I do very much enjoy. We see the ship sort of getting boarded. We have the door getting cut through, shadowy figures moving around. And right off the bat, we're getting that same alien tension. And so I'm really liking it up to this point. But what's really happening is we have basically a rescue mission coming from the company, if you all remember, from the first one who sent them on this mission, who was controlling our android, made them go get the eggs, caused all of this garbage in the first place. James, I see you wrote down here, they got the harpoon still in the door from the last movie, and that's a great touch.
Cool detail. Love that. Yeah, the harpoon is what sent the Xenomorph out into space at the end of the first movie, and it's still wedged at the bottom of the door as this salvage team is cutting through it. Now, I thought in the movie they said that they came across her by chance, and they said, oh, like all her vitals are reading green, and she's alive. And then one of the guys says, there goes our salvage. So it was like all about the money for them. So they found her by chance, right? It was just random? Or was it like a big ploy?
Yeah, but there's a few things in the movie that makes me think it's not quite that. We'll get to that here in the subsequent scenes. Ripley's going to be rescued, and she's going to wake up and realizes she's been in this cryosleep for 57 years. Jonesy is alive, and I thought, they brought her Jonesy, and then we hear, it's been 57 years, and her mind starts to race. She gets a panic attack. She thinks there's something in her chest, so she clearly has some PTSD. This is going to be a bit of a theme through the movie where she, what happened to her. I like that they brought this in. It's not like she's some action figure character who just is on to the next mission. What happened on the Nostromos in Alien is clearly still affecting her and does throughout the movie. And so Jonesy starts to hiss at her and shows his teeth, and everything starts falling apart. And she wakes up a second time. I'm like, we got like nightmare sequences.
That was something where I thought, okay, was it not 57 years? Did that not happen? Because there wasn't like a jarring cutaway of like, this is where time could pass. It just transitioned smoothly into we're waking up from a nightmare. I think the idea is that conversation did happen, and then everything up to the false chest burst scene, it was all a dream. Obviously it didn't happen, but yeah, there's a lot of cool moments with Sigourney Weaver's acting and Ripley's kind of character moments in this movie where she makes a lot of faces and has reactions to things, because later on when they see something that's triggering to her, kind of, you can see like the PTSD coming back, and she's like kind of like covering the mouth, like breaking down. And then there's like cool moments in the second, third act where it's like put the game face on and now it's time to face the music. So really cool to recall that, because like something that we're not big fans of is when people are just indestructible. And I remember in a very underrated movie, Ronin, when someone got shot and they're on an quote unquote operating table, someone's housed in the table, and it's very realistic. And he's like, this shit fucking hurts. Like, I just got shot with a gun. Or like when stuff is just like grounded, I think that speaks volumes, especially in a science fiction world such as this. So yeah, we are 57 years in, Jonesy's back, and we're PTSDing.
PTSD and heart. And we're going to get introduced to Carter Burke from the company as well. He comes in, plays himself off as a nice guy. We're already, as an audience, sort of dubious of him. He's from the company, but he makes sure to say, hey, but I'm one of the good ones. I'm one of the good ones. Ripley is clearly not buying it.
I was a little tricked. I was a little subconsciously, I was 2026 tricked, 2020 tricked, because this is Paul Reiser. So this is Dr. Owens from Stranger Things. And I was like, oh yeah, he's probably playing the same role as Dr. Owens. Like, he's on the bad guys team, but he's one of the good guys. So I did think he was going to be good because of my Stranger Things bias. But no, he will end up being our bad guy later on. And he was kind of giving me almost like John Travolta and some John Stamos vibes with his look. It's crazy.
Feathered hair.
When you see someone, you're like, oh, I know you from this thing, from this day and age. And then you look at their work from 40 years ago and you're like, oh, they were a young person. And it kind of looked like a little Travolta-y and a little Stamos-y.
That's how I feel about, I say this all the time, Mickey Rourke. When I look at young Mickey Rourke, I'm like, oh, you were gorgeous, weren't you? There,
well, he also had like a shit ton of plastic surgery that didn't help.
And drugs, yeah. But, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, Ripley's up, and they want to ask her questions about what happened on the Nostromo, right? That's still a big question. That in their minds, this ship disappeared 57 years ago, and this mission failed, getting that egg that they wanted from LV-426. So she's in front of this council at the company, and she's talking about the Xenomorphs, and they're saying, that's ridiculous. We've been to that planet. We're terraforming it now. We've never heard of this. You self-destructed the ship, which is our property. What the heck's going on? We don't believe you at all.
You're an idiot.
For reasons unknown, the Nostromo set down on LV-426 and was subsequently set for self-destruct by you for reasons unknown.
Not for reasons unknown. I told you. We sat down there on company orders to get this thing, which destroyed my crew and your expensive ship.
It is the finding of this court of inquiry that Warrant Officer E. Ripley, NOC 14472, has acted with questionable judgment and is unfit to hold an ICC license as a commercial flight officer. Said license is hereby suspended indefinitely.
During that boardroom scene, they're saying, like, everything's fine. You're just an insane woman. How about you sit down and lose your job or something? One of these suits is Paul Maxwell, who plays Van Leeuwen, who I am going to call out as one of our first friends of the show, Nick, because Nick, he also played Panama Hat in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you. It belongs in a museum. So do you.
Friend of the show, Panama Hat.
But they're like, you're an idiot. And then later, Paul Reiser, as Burke, comes up to her space apartment and says, hey, listen, actually, that colony, we lost contact with them. So it kind of just seemed like a weird happenstance. Like,
yeah,
she just told the story and they're like, oh, actually. But like, I feel like with what happened, it probably has been a long time since they lost contact. Because when they show up to LV-246 or whatever, which I think is technically a moon, it looks like it's been a disaster for weeks.
Yeah, we do find a live person, so it might be... Anyway.
It could be recent. Yeah, it could be recent.
It does feel like a little plot armory that she just got back from... They just found her, which is why I said, oh, it's just lucky. It was a 1 in 1,000 chance. Well, yeah. They just so happened to need Ripley at this exact moment in time. Either it's all coincidental plot armor or it was more staged. I'm going to go with more staged because I think Cameron would fight through that plot hole a little bit of how, hey, they went and found her. Like, we need to find what happened here on the Nostromos. They found her, brought her back. Hey, we need you to do this now. It feels a little more calculated in my head.
Technically, she was not on the Nostromo. She was like on some escape ship because they blew that shit up.
True. Yeah, she was on the whatever pod deal was going on there. But
so they have the Nostromo from the first movie, which is like very oil riggy looking. And then the Sulaco is actually kind of gives off a gun aesthetic. It looks very pointy. It looks very...
Kind of got a Star Wars vibe.
Yeah. And that's on purpose because James Cameron said, this is going to be a combat movie. And the tagline on the first one was, no one can hear you scream in space or something along those lines. And then this one was, this time it's war. So it was very like Starship Troopery, and we're going to go and shoot them up. The aesthetics, the attitude, it's all come together in this brand new franchise.
And as a big Xbox gamer, I could really see where this movie inspired the game Halo, because there's a lot of very similar things. The way the ships look, our space marines we're going to go ahead and meet here in a few scenes is all very similar. But James, you're right. They do suss it out because she tells Burke that, hey, we're gonna kill them, right? And he goes, yes, we're going to go kill them. So the company knows that these xenomorphs are there. They know, she knows. It's like a very poorly kept secret at this point. So we do have this group of colonial marines, they're called. And I describe these group of colonial marines as overconfident. Like, they don't really trust Ripley's account of how dangerous they are. But similar to what I was talking about in the original Alien, this crew is still extremely diverse. A lot of diversity in the original Alien, a lot of diversity on these colonial marines. We have Hispanic, we have other females, we have the leader is black, we have our jocks, we have our nerds, right? It's like a very ragtag group, but very capable. We even get an illegal alien joke.
Somebody said alien, she thought they said illegal alien and signed up.
Fuck you, man.
They're just Josh and Vasquez. I would say it's the most minimal diverse you could be, because it's not like crazy diverse. There's like a couple black guys and one girl.
There's two chicks.
There's because there's the girl pilot, but it wasn't over the top diverse.
Say 1986 diverse.
The funny thing was that Private Vasquez, who is played by Jeanette Goldstein, is not Latina at all. She's actually Jewish and Irish.
Oh, no.
And they put colored contacts in her eyes so she would have brown eyes.
Oh, no.
So sorry, Nick, there is no Latina. It's a Jewish-Irish actress.
Vasquez is a lie.
Pretty common for the time. Not something that you're going to see nowadays for good reasons. You know, if someone's supposed to be a certain ethnicity or nationality, then they're just going to make a conscious effort to cast that person.
Makes sense.
But I forgot why. I think it's because they had to go through like a London roster and then like an American roster.
It was due to production constraints. Since the film was shot at Pinewood Studios in England, the producers were restricted by the British Actors Equity Association regarding the number of American actors they could import, and were otherwise limited to actors available through the British Equity Union. The need for a Latina with a muscular physique was severely limited amongst the pool of British actors or British-based American actors. Jeanette Goldstein fit the bill. And while some critics and viewers note the lack of proper representation, the casting is often viewed as a result of 1980s industry constraints rather than a deliberate, malicious choice, with some Latin American viewers still finding Private Vasquez to be a positive and strong role model.
But not like super offensive, but just like, you wouldn't see that these days.
Yeah.
These Marines are like a bunch of meatheads. You know, it kind of is Starship Troopery.
Very much.
I think that was by design, because they are obviously way overconfident, and they're like, what is this, another bug hunt? Hey, who's this chick? Hey, we're doing pull-ups over here. It's very over the top, but I don't think that's a mistake.
Yeah, everyone's just randomly doing pull-ups on anything that's hanging down from the ceiling. They see something hanging from the ceiling, they're like, pull-up time. Or if I see one of those bugs, I'll just murder it. All right.
It kind of makes it seem like, oh, this is like a team that goes out and does this, and they go to a bunch of different planets and moons, and they encounter different species. So they're about to encounter something crazy and out of their element. But Nick, at least with one of our actors here, we have our Sergeant Apone, who is played by Al Matthews, who is actually a former U.S. Marine. He was almost kind of doubling as a pseudo tech advisor, because he would kind of say, hey, this is how we should act. This is how we should behave. And he was very strict on the guns. So as he put it, I watched this documentary. It's like the official making of documentary. It's called Superior Firepower, The Making of Aliens from 2003.
Well, you know, I suffer from the Vietnam syndrome. If you point a gun at me, I'm going to shove it down your throat. I'm sorry to say that. Sorry, gang, but that's the truth. If you point, we had things where everyone's instinct is automatically to put their fingers on the trigger. Well, they stopped doing that on the set with me because I don't have it. I really don't have it. It's an instinct. That's the way I was trained. Thank you very much, America. That's how I was trained. If you put your finger on the trigger when you're talking or you're waving your weapon around, I'm going to jam it down your throat. I got to do that.
So they did have a real just bop, 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 bop. This how we do it. Al Matthews taking charge. So he was kind of instructing everybody how to do like the gun holding and how to move. So it was a nice little bonus having one of those guys who's former military turned actor be on set.
Yeah, and actually, Al, friend of the show.
He is a friend of the show, Nick. He is from The Fifth Element.
General Tutor in The Fifth Element. I didn't think he looked familiar, but I thought I really like this guy in Aliens. I really hope he's a friend of the show. And turns out, friend of the show.
So yeah, he's teaching the guys how to use the guns. I do want to talk about the guns when we get into the combat scenes, but...
Well, let's get to those combat scenes, James. So along with our Colonial Marines, we have a new android. This is Bishop. Rightfully so. Ripley has no trust in. Basically says, I don't want him as a part of this at all if I'm going to be involved, to be honest. Bishop gives her this whole line, hey, no, I'm a new improved version. A lot of time has passed. My directive is I can't harm humans in any way, shape, or form. So she reluctantly goes along with it, but there's this big distrust with Bishop.
So Bishop does this knife thing, you know, when you put your hands on the table and then like you stab a knife through the people's fingers. So apparently they didn't tell Bill Paxton this, but they said, hey, I'm going to put my hand over Bill Paxton's hand on this take and we're just going to roll.
Hey, what are you doing, man? Hey, what are you doing? Come on, quit messing around, Dre. Come on. Bishop, hey, man.
Bill Paxton's going to be like our comedic relief for the movie. So Bishop does this knife trick with Hudson, who is Bill Paxton. But then when he sits down with Ripley and Burke, I saw him like holding what I thought was a white pill. And then he squeezes it and then it kind of turns into a white milky liquid. And I was like, oh, that's milk. I was like, oh, wait, why was milk important? Oh, yeah, that was like the blood of the androids. And then like as soon as I thought about it, I was like, oh, he's an... And then Ripley's like, he's an android. I was like, oh, give me a second, Cameron. I was figuring it out in real time. And then there's this interesting moment because Burke says, oh, I thought you never made mistakes because he's a robot. He shouldn't be missing the knife. So I thought Burke didn't know he was legit bad guy then, but we do know he's a bad guy by the end of the movie. He read the file on Ripley. He knows that she had this horrible encounter with what's-his-nuts, Ian Holm, Ash.
Yes.
Ash was the android in Alien. So I feel like this was kind of a psychological setup. I kind of get Ripley off her game, try to like trigger her of some sort, because he has this whole secret agenda of what he wants to do with this colony. But I thought that was interesting. I was like, did he give Bishop a secret order to nick himself so that we'd have this sort of like triggering moment for Ripley? I don't know. 3D chess? I don't know.
Yeah, because like you said, he has this agenda where he's trying to get Ripley on his side, and that's a good point where he's saying, oh, there's another android you don't trust.
And this is another bait and switch of like, oh, remember the android from the last movie and he was the bad guy? Here's our new one. And Lance Henriksen kind of looks he's very great looking character. He kind of looks like he could be shady or he could be a homie.
Absolutely.
So it was a little bit of like a look over here. Here's our real bad guy.
Well, we're going to get ourselves to our base on LV-426, and this place is torn up. And as Ripley was saying back on the ship, she was saying, we're not here to study them, because that was the whole part of Alien, right? Was to get this egg, bring it back so they could study it. She says, we're not studying it. We are just killing them. Well, clearly on this moon base here at Hadley's Hope, they were very obviously studying these things, and it got out of hand. We find these chambers, these large test tubes where they have specimens in them. I think it's a good point you brought up where Ripley is clearly starting to wonder, who am I working for? Is this a good idea? Who are these meatheads who are shoot first, ask questions later? She's in a weird spot, and the PTSD, like you said, is clearly, she's not saying anything, but her facial expressions are pure distress throughout the first 45 minutes to an hour of this movie. And Sigourney, I mean, we don't need to say anything about her. She is fantastic just about in everything she does.
And she's super great in this. And it seems like she's the only competent one there, because we also have this other character named Lieutenant Gorman, played by William Hope, who is hilarious to me because he's almost like James Cameron coming into Pinewood Studios and the crew doesn't respect him and doesn't like his ways. Because our privates and our meatheads don't respect Lieutenant Gorman because he's kind of a pretender almost.
He freezes up under pressure later on. He panics.
He's so sweaty. He looks like Jordan Peele in that Key and Peele sketch all the time. Because like when they're dropping into LV 426, they're like, how many drops have you done? And he's like 38 simulated. And then they're like, he's like, how many real ones? 2, including this one. So he's just over his skis. He doesn't know what he's doing. He says, area secured. And then Ripley's like, no, it's not. Because she knows how sneaky these motherfuckers are, dude.
Yeah.
She knows. These guys blend into the environment. They're hella smart.
They're
He's
in
like,
the fence.
Bullshit, it's safe. Yeah.
It's funny, but we're going to get our first introduction to a new character who's going to be a very important character. This is Carrie Henn, I believe, is the actress, and this is Rebecca. So we're going to get our first sort of jump scare as we're walking through this facility, and we see fast movement in the shadows, and we're thinking Xenomorph right off the bat, right? The audience is conditioned for it. That's clearly what's happening. But no, we get this little girl who is a survivor of the chaos that has happened here at Hadley's Hope. And the crew doesn't know how to talk to her. Honestly, Sigourney doesn't either. They're trying to like run after her and grab her and capture her. And she clearly knows the layout of this place like nobody's business. She's running through the vents. She has this little nest that she's made with like snacks and toys. And once we do get her, we realize her name's Rebecca. And when they call her Rebecca, when Ripley calls her Rebecca, she says, only my brother calls me Rebecca. My name is Newt. Like the little animal, little lizard thing. So this is Newt. And right off the bat, a huge theme of this movie is going to be maternal instinct. And Ripley has this very strong maternal bond to Newt. I think it's just because of, I saw this somewhere, but I don't recall this in the movie. Did she have a daughter that has now passed because of the amount of time that has passed? I may have missed this part in the beginning.
No, you didn't. Thank God you didn't watch a different version of the movie like Menace to Society. But yes, there is a super extended cut, which apparently people say is the better one, even though this one's fantastic. Yes, there is a scene where Burke shows her a picture of her daughter. Her daughter's like way older than her, and then she died. And it would have made the movie better, and you can kind of tie point A to point B to point C a little bit easier with this, because there's a lot of stuff that the studio, again, they're like, we got to cut down the runtime. And granted, it's a long movie. I think this was like 2 hours, 10 minutes, maybe.
Yep. That's the version I watched,
credits.
2:11.
Yeah, it's a longer movie. And then I think they wanted 12 minutes cut out, and that was one of them. And there's a lot of cool moments that unfortunately got cut out, but we're not reviewing the extended cut. We're reviewing the theatrical cut. So this is what we're going to work with. But yeah, she did have a daughter. She did die. There was a little bit of remorse there. And now Newt is going to be the surrogate daughter to Ripley, and she's going to form a bond with her.
Yeah, and I chalked it up to her not being able to save her original crew, and this was like a new innocent soul she was trying to save. So I think it works either way. Regardless, I'm sure Cameron saw it the same way, which is why he probably cut out the daughter portion. But either way, yeah, Ripley's very tied to Newt, takes on the mother role immediately for her, and she's going to be a huge part of the story. But we're still looking for trouble. We're still looking for any other survivors that may be here at Hadley's Hope. And on the computers, we're going to see a cluster of them gathered underground in like a reactor room. It's like 3 stories down. And immediately like this is no bueno, my guy. Like you have 7. It's like, oh, they're having a party down there. And Ripley automatically has this thought like, oh no, this is not good.
Big trap vibes. Like there's no way this is not a trap. Like we're being led into the hive and it's about to be a massacre. But they don't know that because they're idiots. Except Ripley.
They don't listen to Ripley. We are going to go down to find these quote unquote survivors at Hadley's Moon. And we're going to get down to this hive, and big shout out. You know, we love it here. Set deck. All of that is just fantastic.
Production design.
Thank you. Is wonderful. These sort of alienish growths that are happening in this nest, this hive, is fantastic as they're walking through. The steam, not super well lit, so there's still a lot of ambiguity to everything that's happening. It's creepy, it's dark, it's just so wonderfully done. So everybody, all crew on this movie is just killing it. And we're going to get to this nest, and we're going to end up finding a live human, and we as the audience know what's going to happen. We see it happening. This woman, she's alive. They're trying to get her out. Ripley is watching on a camera of what's happening, and she sees this woman freaking out, and her chest starts convulsing. And this is what you were talking about, James, where we see Ripley's face sort of starting to, her eyes are freaking out. She knows what's about to happen.
Going back in it.
We're getting the iconic chest alien about to pop out because it is Alien. And I'm sure that James Cameron loved this part. Like, this probably stuck with him when he saw the original Alien, and he said, we have to recreate this again. It's too iconic to not recreate. We get the alien pop out. Ripley's freaking out. The PTSD is rushing back. The Marines are freaking out. The Marines start getting murked because we have full-grown xenomorphs popping in as well. We have younger xenomorphs. We have this whole situation.
Yeah, and when we find that live one on the wall, she, it's a little bit of a jump scare, and she like wakes up, and she says, "Kill me." And speaking of deleted scenes, there was actually a scene in Alien where Ripley encountered Dallas in this form. Dallas, they filmed a scene with Dallas on the wall, kind of very The Thing, Stranger Things, very gross out bodily stuff where he's part of this big hive mind thing. And he also said, "Kill me." So even though it's not canon, we're going to think that James Cameron made an homage to that scene that was never shown in the theatrical version. And this is where the lieutenant is way over his head and he's hella sweaty.
Oh,
I like the dichotomy of Alien to Aliens because it seemed like Alien, the crew on the Nostromo, was a bit more calculated than these shoot 'em up Marines. Because when Ash is dissecting the face hugger and they discover the acid, and they're like, oh, what a beautiful defense mechanism by this alien species. Its blood is acid, so you can't get close and have close encounters.
Molecular acid. Must be using it for blood. It's got a wonderful defense mechanism.
And then so when these Marines start shooting up these xenomorphs, they're having casualty. Yeah, they're experiencing the acid blood firsthand. I'm sure they were warned by Ripley during that boardroom meeting and say like, hey, here's all the properties of this alien. This is where we do get the xenomorph name drop.
All we know is that there's still no contact with the colony and that a xenomorph may be involved.
Excuse me, sir. A what?
A xenomorph.
So we didn't have it in the first movie. Now we have a name for these things. Also, same thing. I don't think they technically name dropped the moon that they were on of LV-426, but we get the name drop of LV-426. We get the name drop of xenomorphs. And now we're seeing these ignorant people who didn't do the research or weren't debriefed or were left in the dark by the shady company now have firsthand repercussions of these deadly properties. It's a crazy battle. We have xenomorphs coming out from the shadows, or they're part of the environment and they're camouflaged, and all of a sudden they spring on to somebody. This is where I want to talk about the guns, Nick. We had some really cool guns in here. The cool thing is that they were using practical guns that were shooting blanks, but they dressed them up in science fiction form. Friend of the show from the last Alien movie and Back to the Future and a bunch of other stuff, Ron Cobb is back. So he's part of the division that's making up cool shit. And James Cameron had his own version of concepts. But John Richardson, the special effects supervisor, wanted to acquire the most reliable guns that could fire blanks. So they wanted ones that can give off the most muzzle flash with these blanks and have a high fire rate. So a lot of this movie, Nick, the effects, for the most part, are done what's called in camera, which I love. Basically, it's like you're doing stuff practically. You're trying to limit the amount of visual effects you need and CGI. So the big finale at the end has a lot of cool in-camera stuff going to work as well. But for the guns themselves, we have our armorer, Simon Atherton, on this documentary, The Superior Firepower. He's explaining how the main pulse rifle, the thing with like the digital number count on the side, it's got like a flamethrower and a grenade launcher. So this is actually an M1A1 Thompson submachine gun. And they also have a cut down Remington shotgun mounted to the bottom of it for that pump action feature for it. And then the big ass gun that the tiniest soldier of Vasquez is hauling around, which they call the smart gun, M56 smart gun, if we're being technical to the movie's lore. So the base of this thing is a German MG42 machine gun, and it's actually mounted to a Steadicam harness, which is obviously for cameras, for when people are walking around and they have this big camera rig in front of their chest and they need to aim and point it, but keep it smooth. In the documentary, the armorer, Simon Atherton, is explaining this as it's mounted to Jeanette Goldstein, and she looks so tiny. This gun is massive. The gun is like bigger than her. And Simon's like, hey, if you look right here, and she's just like a kid, like just getting manhandled by this big ass gun. It's comedy. So Simon also explains that they mix the gun with Kawasaki and Husqvarna motorcycle parts. So you'll actually see a control panel and foot pegs from a Kawasaki. I thought the coolest thing about this gun was that you'll see motorcycle handlebars as a part of this gun, with the brake lever actually being practically connected to the trigger.
We've mixed it up with 250 Kawasaki motorcycle parts. Here you have the indicator unit. Here you have the back supports for the pillion rider. And at the back here, you have a clutch cable, which is linked to the trigger mechanism. I thought what was going to happen is that the harness was going to take the energy out of the bolt coming back, and that we were going to get ejection problems, and the gun wasn't going to work. But we persevered and eventually got there.
That you can pull that and it's going to practically spit out blanks. I thought, that's awesome.
That's
cool.
sick.
Attention to detail. Sick as hell, dude. Guns were a big part of this movie. And Sigourney Weaver said back then, she's like, I actually don't like guns. Like, I wasn't a big fan of how much guns were going to be in the movie. I'm an advocate for anti-gun legislations. In this documentary, whoever edited it is hilarious because they cut to Bill Paxton and he says, I love shooting guns, with a big smile on his face. That's the best part of my job.
It's actually hard for me morally to justify being in a film with so many guns. I just find it very upsetting. And that's the biggest problem for me, is that reading the script, I had no idea how martial the atmosphere would be and how much emphasis that would have. I give money to anti-gun legislation, and I mean, I never even go to see movies about guns, especially killing people. I can't, I just think, I think it would be very difficult for an actor to do. You'd really have to sort of do a number on yourself,
I love shooting the guns. That's like the best part of my job.
Then Sigourney Weaver's like, actually, I kind of see it. She's like, I don't like how much I like it. She's like, I can see how guns in bad people's hands can get very bad because you do get addicted to the power. No one should have this feeling of immortality. But the target practice was pretty fun.
It's fun. And it all comes together really well. It adds to the chaos, I'd say, of a lot of the scenes. So when we get those xenomorphs popping out of the wall, it's not just, xenomorph. There's so much gunfire and sparks flying. And we have this whole other part of it that's, we can't penetrate the walls because the cooling system's there. And
it's xenomorphs. It's his aliens. Like in the first movie, we're trying to fend off one, but now we have a bunch.
Get them out of there!
Well, James, while these very practically real guns are being shot off against our xenomorphs and everything's happening and the chaos is going on, and there's flamethrowers on these guns too. So we're just throwing flames around. I mean, just production-wise is chaotic in the best possible way. Ripley freaks out. She said, we have to do something. Right, our sweaty boy's not doing nothing. He's freezing. She's like, "Do something." He's like,
choking. He's choking.
Look, he's choking.
Hicks, whoever's left, get the hell out of here! Damn it!
And Ripley's like, "I'm going to do something." So she hijacks this vehicle, which I call it the Cybertruck Batmobile. If this did not fully inspire the Cybertruck, I would be shocked because it looks like a modern day Cybertruck that has also been converted into a Batmobile with the big tires and basically a turret on top. And she's going to slam through the wall to rescue her crew. We're smacking up some Xenos along the way. So where our first Xenomorph in Alien was such a big issue, our Marines do in fact kill a few of these Xenomorphs. Ripley runs one over in this Cybertruck. So they are a lot more vulnerable in this one, I'd say. Like, they're not as scary when you have the guns and the weapons available to you. So
first thing about the Cybertruck, that's also what my wife said. She's like, is that a Cybertruck? So obviously, she knew it wasn't, but she's like, wow, that thing looks like a Cybertruck through and through. What I found out is that this is one of those vehicles that hauls the airplanes up to the gate that you would see at the airport.
Oh, it's like a taxiing.
Yeah, this is like a small, powerful thing that tugs around 747s at the airport that got dressed up to look like a cool sci-fi armored truck. Speaking of Batman, this part of the moon is filmed at this abandoned power plant in London, which I found out was also the same shooting location they did for 1989's Batman. I think it was the when Bruce Wayne was schmobbing around in the Batmobile in this industrial plant. That was also filmed over there.
Interesting.
This is crazy. So we are losing a bunch of Marines. I'm going to assume one of them gets lost in this manslaughter of Private Crow. Nick, this is just a friend of the show, I got to point out. Tipping is his name. Nick, he is not once, not twice, not thrice, but a 4-time uncredited friend of the show. Nick, he was band member, club patron, and thuggy in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He was also tank crewman in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He also played, speaking of 1989's Batman, the Smilex Poison Punk. And lastly, he was a wheeler in Return to Oz.
Tip, I didn't know you were such a Renaissance man.
How have we never found this guy? I feel like I've never shouted this guy out. We've watched 4 movies with him. 5th now. I think maybe because he's actually credited.
Yeah, well, good on Tip, man.
Might just pass Kurt Russell for the most movies you've been in that we've watched.
That might be it. Yeah, that
maybe.
might be it.
Maybe. But I think another thing with uncredited, it can also mean like it was in a deleted scene, so maybe we never saw them. Because there was another guy that was in a deleted scene in this movie. It's like he also was in Batman and this movie and whatever. So, we do our best. But Tipping, super friend of the show. Welcome to the program, buddy.
And a great name.
Excellent name. And as far as the Xenomorphs and how their plan of attack is, well, they can't be younger than the Alien on Alien because the Alien on Alien was like 10 hours
Pretty
old
new.
or something.
Maybe he was just him, the Xenomorph.
I think he was him. Also, I think they obviously adapt to their environment, and they're, for being babies, essentially, they are very smart. So I think they just react to what they're dealing with. And the longer they learn about their prey or their op, they're going to adjust their game plan. So I think with this one, they're like, oh, like we've never seen high grade military stuff be whipped out on us. Let's just go ballistic. And maybe the Cybertruck is too much for them because, yeah, that one gets ran over.
James, we're going to call an evac ship because we got to get the fuck out of here because there's just too much going on. We got Newt. We got a little girl here now. We're clearly overmatched. We're going to need to call in the reinforcements. So we have an evac ship coming.
It's where we get one of the quotes of the movie when Hudson is freaking out. And he's like, that's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
One of the all-time quotes of this movie.
Hudson's losing it. Well, our evac ship gets taken down. There's a Xeno on board. These sons of bitches are
smart
everywhere.
They're sneaky and smart, I'm telling you.
They're smart. They have boarded ships. And now we learned we got to survive for 17 days until we can get back into contact. And this is like, no way, man. We can't go back out there, man. We're screwed, man. It's
17 days.
Man.
We're not going to last 17 hours.
This is also where we learned Burke is a bad man. He wants to take the specimens for money.
Bad Burke.
He's trying to recruit Ripley, saying, this is our chance. We can make a bunch of money. If I'm Ripley, I'm saying, I've been asleep for 57 years. I don't know. I don't even know where home is anymore. What am I going to do with money? Like, what is she going to go back to Earth? Is she just a space person now? That was one of my questions early on after she woke up. I'm like, where are they going to send her? What's her goal? They're like, we have a job for you in the loading dock. It's like, you just get shanghaied to work in space for the company forever? Like, what's your life now, man?
She doesn't know how to drive the forklift version of a mech
The
suit,
loader.
though.
Yeah, she's got the exo loader.
This happened earlier in the movie when it was like some of the private military guys or something. Maybe it's the lieutenant and someone else, but they're like, what can you do, woman? She's like, I can drive that loader. And then they're like watching her like use the loader, and she's like with her face, like, see? And then they're like, not bad with her face. And then I'm just like, it's always funny to me because I always think of the Anchorman scene when Ron Burgundy's in the bar and Danny Trejo, and he's complaining about Veronica Corningstone. And then Danny Trejo, I say this all the time because it's one of the most funniest things to me, because it kind of is for those misogynistic people and the sexist people. They're like, what? Women can't do that. Because Danny Trejo looks at Ron Burgundy and says, hey, man, women can do stuff now.
Times are changing. Ladies can do stuff now.
It's like, they've always been able to do stuff. They've always been able to do stuff. All right. But that line in Anchorman, I think about all the time. So that when she was walking around the mech suit, they're like, oh, look at this lady go.
It's so funny. It's like 57 years has passed. And I thought Alien was so progressive with like having females, like people on there. Like, what could you
We got a Jewish, Irish, Latina lady, but we're shocked that someone can use a loader.
Yeah, it's big time. Well, we actually get a little bit of silver lining. So we're saying, hey, we can go get that ship. We can reestablish communication, do the satellite, fix the ship, get it back up and running. Who can do it? And Bishop, our android, who's sort of been in the background up to this point, says, you know what? I don't want to do it because I'm not a robot. I'm an android. I still haven't quite figured out the difference. He says, I still don't want to die.
I'm an artificial person. He takes offense to like synthetic or something.
Yeah. But he says, but I'm the best person for the job. I'm going to go do this. He does like a Shawshank Redemption type escape where he kind of drills a hole in the sewer and he like starts climbing out of it. But we're like, all right, Bishop, like a little bit of sacrificial, a little bit of a suicide mission going out on. We like that. But what we don't like is what happens next, which is Ripley and Newt sleeping. They're trying to wait for Bishop to be ready. And they're in the medical bay. And all of a sudden, while they're trying to sleep, Ripley realizes stuff has been knocked over. There's face huggers in the medical bay. We haven't seen our face huggers yet.
We saw one in the water, in like the tube. It was really gross looking. I was like, oh.
It's super disgusting looking.
With its like throat rod, kind of like sucking on the glass. Nasty.
This is Burke, by the way, who released it on them.
Burke sabotaged the med bay because he wanted Ripley and Newt to get face hugged to smuggle aliens back to the base. So was his plan that they got face hugged and they forgot about it? And it was in their body, and then like he had to time out the chest burst. Was that his plan?
I think so. Like because he clearly doesn't understand the xenomorphs. He just has an idea of what he can get. So maybe he was going to smuggle them back in with the face hugger on them, so that then the alien could be born out of their chest. I really don't know. We get a very intense scene in the med bay, though. The Marines break in to save Ripley and Newt. Hicks and Ripley are kind of having a little bit of a thing. He's teaching her how to use the gun. He's kind of good looking. There's not a romance storyline, but it's clear they're kind of got a little bit of a thing.
We got tension.
There's some sexual tension.
He wants to face hug her.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Sorry. No, Michael Biehn, who plays Corporal Hicks, there's like a power struggle scene where we find out Burke is probably going to be our bad guy because he kind of starts saying like, this is a gold mine, and what you did to the Nostromo, you blew up this big $1 billion ship. Like, what's wrong with you? There's so much money to be made here. And then Ripley's like, no, we got to like abandon ship. We got to get out of here. We got to nuke this moon from orbit and let's go. And he's like, I can't let you do that. And then she's like, well, this is a military mission. So guess what? Hicks is next in line and he can make the call. And this is where Hicks basically repeats what Sigourney says and then kind of give each other an exchange like, yeah, you're cool. But Corporal Hicks, funny enough, was originally cast as James Remar. He got dropped from the project. So originally he was Hicks. So then Michael Biehn stepped in and became Hicks. Back in the day, they're like, oh, he had to go back home to deal with a family matter. And then later it came out, no, he found drug dealers in London, bought heroin, and had a bad time with that. But there's actually a couple scenes where they couldn't go back and reshoot it. And it actually is James Remar. as Corporal Hicks in the shot just from the back. And then as soon as he turns around, they have to cut it.
Interesting. I love little facts like that. My man just went off onto a fucking bender. Well, James, now that we got the face huggers, shit's going crazy. The Xenomorphs know what's going on, and we need to do an escape. Burke's going to meet his fate as he tries to escape. The whole crew is turning on him, and he backs up. It's kind of actually a little funny. He's backing up to a door. The door opens up, and he's like, I'm making my escape, as if he can get off this moon by himself somehow. I don't know.
You don't know anything.
I don't know anything, but the door opens up. There's a Xenomorph there, and we get like the...
Rest in peace. You won't be missed.
Nah. Now we need to escape, and now our girl Newt, who's been surviving here at Hadley's Hope for a long time, she's like, hey, let's get into these vents. I know how to get out of here. She's guiding everyone. Vasquez is just making a stand in these vents. She is
crazy.
With her LMG, she's going nuts. That's out of ammo. She pulls out her handgun. She's murdered.
Dude, I have to
killed a
point
lot of
this out.
Xenomorphs. Yeah.
We've killed a ton of Xenomorphs, but Vasquez in the goddamn vents, dude, that Xenomorph has a drop on her, and then she pins this fool by his neck against the wall.
The one that comes from the top?
From the top. He has a drop on her, comes down, she pins his neck up against the wall with her foot, and then New Jack City's this guy with a Glock.
Yeah. You get a whole like, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out, watch out, watch out.
Bam, pins him, and then just pop, point blank.
And then Vasquez and Gorman, they're going to go ahead and go out together, pulling the pin on a grenade.
Gorman has a redemption moment here because he's been a little bit of a phony bitch this entire time. And then so now he's like coming back for Vasquez, and then they're coming in and closed on two Xenomorphs, and then they pull out a grenade, and then they kind of do it together. They release the pin. It's not pin, it's like a button because it's futuristic. They release the button, and then it blows up the air ducts, and then they make a sacrifice play to kill those two Xenomorphs because they know it's done. We're done. We're toast.
They have a little line where it's like, you were always a crazy son of a bitch.
Well, she's like, I think she's like, you're always an asshole, Gorman.
You always were an asshole, Gorman.
It's a good one.
It was like an insult, but like, you got my respect in these final moments.
Bishop, meantime, is on his way. He's repaired the ship. Newt and Hicks and Ripley are still making their way out. I thought this was really funny. Newt falls onto this mechanical thing that's like a water wheel on an old river, and she just kind of melts under the floor. I felt like it was almost like a Temple of Doom, like,
oh, like the Mola Ram trapdoor.
Yeah, she just kind of just like gets underneath the grates, and they're like, "What do we do?" She's just gone now. And they try to save her, but she's lost to the ship. Ripley is very distressed, obviously, because she's her mom. She's the mother figure at this point. She's lost Newt. Newt has morphed into the floor under the grates. We do get this scene where she's sort of in what would be considered the sewers of this facility, and a Xenomorph,
such a cool shot,
rises up over her. It's
so cool.
It's really cool. I want to say this much because this is something I felt, and this is a negative on the movie in a way, is back in Alien, we didn't see the Xenomorph a lot until the end, and the mystery of how it looked was a huge part of the movie. An hour into this 2-hour film, we get full Xenomorph, and it's really hard to do that where we're just seeing a lot of it, and I don't think it's necessarily the best effects early on when we're seeing these Xenomorphs. It looks a little puppeteery. It looks fine for 1986, but watching it as a 2026 audience, it doesn't look as good. I kind of forgave that in Alien because we didn't quite see it in its full force a lot. And so there's some of those action chaotic shots where it looks a little cheesy. That's me personally. That's how I felt about it. And then in the big moments like this one in the sewer, where it clearly was a huge part of the shot, it actually looks good. So I agree with you. This is a really good shot of the Xenomorph.
Yeah, and just a counter argument to what you brought up, that is valid. However, they're doing new stuff here. It's aliens, not alien. And the emphasis is there's a lot more action. So you are getting into new territory where in the late 70s when they make Alien and there's one guy in one suit or there's one stuntman being hung from the rafters in one suit and the suit's hyper detailed. This one's like we have a lot of Xenomorphs to bang out. Like, so we're going to make them more lightweight. You can do more stuff in them as a stuntman. They're not going to be this crazy intricate piece of art. And with how clunky and heavy and crazy it is, we're going to hide it with the darkness and the lighting scheme. And this one, they're like, hey, they're going to be out here battling, so we got to try new stuff. I saw that they had like basically statues of them where they're just kind of static on the truck and then they get flung off, or the one that gets run over. So I think that's where the cheesy effects come into play, what you're talking about.
Totally.
But there's no reason to keep them a mystery because we already know what they look like. And that being a monster movie in the first Alien, and this is a combat action fun movie, obviously we're just going to see them front and center and they're the main opponents. But yeah,
totally. I totally agree with you. You're venturing into new territory. And so you don't it's a whole new thing and it's totally fine. It's not an indictment on the film. It's just, hey, as it's going along, you're starting to get a little bit of that mid 1980s, little bit of cheese with the props. Yeah, it just
perfect.
Is what it is.
So
it's just what it
we
is.
can tell what it. Yeah, we can tell it.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of iconic shots and cool moments in this movie that you forgive it.
Yeah, it didn't take me out of the film. I'll say that much. There's just little things in 2026 where you go like, oh, that was kind of fun. And forget the cheese, James, because Bishop's back.
Baby,
Bishop's here. He's finally flown in. We've lost Newt, but Hicks and Ripley, they've made their escape. They get there, but you know what Ripley says? Ripley says, we got to go back because that's my baby girl now. And she's in there with the Xenomorphs. And not only do we got to get Newt, we got to end this thing once and for all.
Do we like Ricks or Hipley for their couple name? Or Ricks Hipley?
I like Hipley. I think Hipley's pretty solid.
Okay. Team Hipley.
Except they're not a team at the end because she's going to go back solo when she just dropped down. Now I got.
Well, I think he gets acided in the
no, he's down
point,
for the
so
count.
He's out. He's out.
He it's not like he bitches out. He can't go back. My guy is hurt.
He's on disability.
So we're gonna fly back in. This now is very James Cameron Terminator-ish because Ripley is going to load herself up with all the weapons. She descends an elevator down into the nest of the aliens. Got the full arsenal going on with her. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is now an action film.
And James Cameron has always made a point to have strong heroine characters in his movies.
Yeah.
He likes strong female characters. To Sarah Connor, Ripley. So this is now Ripley's Sarah Connor moment. And she's coming into kick ass and chew bubble gum, and she's all out of bubble gum.
I said she's looking like Rambo. She is full on, just ready to go.
Rip low.
Well, she's gonna find Newt. Newt wakes up. There's a egg that pops open in front of her. A face hugger's crawling out. This looked really good, practically. The emerging of the face hugger out of this egg, and we're gonna hear the scream. Ripley hears the scream. She's gonna rip apart this face hugger. And we're going to meet the alien queen. So there's basically almost like a queen wasp or a bee has this big butt that kind of poops out eggs. We're going to have that version of Alien for the Xenomorphs.
The queen, I think, described by Cameron it's supposed to be like repulsive but beautiful, like a black widow. It is. I like the design of this because when you see the silhouette of the queen, it looks like she has a big crown based on just like her head shape. And there's these things that are holding her up that look like spider legs, but they're just to keep her suspended as she poops out eggs out of this disgusting intestine looking thing. And we walk into this room that's just full of face hugger eggs, which is reminiscent of the first movie when John Hurt's character Kane walks in and finds that room full of eggs and then gets face hugged. So this is a face off between our two queens of the movie.
Our mamas.
And now we're going to have this epic face-off against the Queen Xenomorph, which is an original design for this movie. Because, Nick, as we know, Hans Rudy Giger was the main alien creature designer for the original Alien. I heard different things. I heard like James Cameron didn't want to work with him, or like the studio didn't want to work with him because he was difficult. I also heard that he was just busy working on Poltergeist 2. I'm going to say that's what the story is. So they do bring in Stan Winston to be the lead on the alien creature effects, who is a friend of the show because he helped out The Thing by making the dog thing creature for John Carpenter's movie.
It's a legend.
Nick, we were talking before the pod about watching these documentaries, and we think it's funny when these guys name drop random guys like we're supposed to know them. They say, oh, yeah, Jack did the rigging, and Stephanie did the puppeteering, and this guy did that. But, Nick, I actually did recognize a name because one of these special effects guys for the alien creature department, they said, oh, Stephen Norrington did a great job doing this. And I thought, Stephen Norrington, I feel like that's familiar. Stephen Norrington, who is on the creature effects crew of Aliens, or as we know him as the director of Blade, and the puppeteer of Gump from Return to Oz.
Friend of the show.
What can you tell us about the creature design of the Queen Xenomorph, which is now original to this sequel? This is the new evolution of the Xenomorphs, and something Cameron can say, yep, this is part of my movie. But it's all inspired by Giger's work and Ridley Scott's original movie.
So James Cameron had this idea of having this queen, and so he had multiple people sort of come up with designs. He ended up having a painting of it done, brought it to Stan Winston and said, this is going to be the queen. What can we do? And immediately Stan's mind is racing. Like you said, he's done The Thing. He's worked on Jurassic Park. This guy's been everywhere. Like he's the practical.
He's done the biggest things.
He's the practical effect guru. He has a school named after him for people who want to get into practical effects. There's a whole thing, and he's since passed away quite a while ago, but his legacy lives on. He had this whole idea about having two people in the suit. He's like, all right, we can create this big practical creature. We could have two people in there. And he's talking about this is the beginning of using hydraulics in this. So they had hydraulic setups. They had two people in there controlling the movements. They had hydraulics controlling some of the arms. So it was this big, big thing. I always find it funny in his interview. Like you said, we talk about people using first names. He refers to James Cameron as Jimmy. He goes, yeah, Jimmy was telling me this, and Jimmy was telling me that.
Jim Cameron. I'm like,
yeah,
his name is James Cameron.
It's all James. So Jimmy gave me this painting, and a really, really cool design for it. It's in place, and Sigourney Weaver's character, so Ripley, is using the flamethrower to kill the eggs.
This is another great moment for Ripley because the Queen looks like she is the final boss. Ripley has Newt, and the Queen has her eggs, and Ripley has a gun. They have this mutual understanding. It's very, very weird that they understand, but this maternal understanding comes through cross species. Ripley starts backing up like, all right, I'm going to back up with Newt, and we're going to get out of here. And the Queen's like allowing it to happen. And then there's this great moment, again, just a facial expression and body language where Ripley looks at the Queen and kind of gives like a little, you know what? I'm going to torch your fucking children. It's crazy. It's crazy. Is. She's like, because it's like, all right, cool. We're cool. We're good. We're backing up. We're neutral. And then she's like, nope, I got to kill you sons of bitches. And I feel like this is where the PTSD and getting over your scarring traumatic memories comes into a full circle moment. Cause she's like, this was our mission. Our mission was to come in here and save these guys. These guys are dead. So now I need to make sure you guys don't fucking survive, even though they're going to nuke the moon. Hashtag nuke the moon.
Yeah. The nuclear reactor it's kind of like meltdown is happening.
It's almost like a cathartic moment for Ripley. Cause she's like, I gotta spray down your guys. And dude, I don't know if it's hate or if it's like, this will make me feel better, but yeah, it is kind of savage.
It is a little sadistic because she does the flamethrower on some of them and then stops and then stares at the Queen again and then does another like 5 seconds of flamethrower of the Queen is like screaming.
And I think it's for like, this is for Dallas. This is for Parker. This is for Kane. This is for my crew, you bitch.
It's like, we're not equals as mothers. Like, I am protecting, you are destroying.
It's like a nature documentary out here. It's like,
yeah,
because you always hear like, the mama bear, or like the mom's like the strong, crazy aggro one, and they're going to murder whoever's coming after the kids. So it's a cool moment.
We are going to get out of there after torching these queen's kids. And we're going to fly to safety with Bishop. We're with Hicks. We got Newt. We're going to get back onto the main ship. Ripley and Bishop are going to have a moment of respect. You were a good android. We're going to work together in the future. Everything's good. Oh, no! The queen was on the ship. Oh, Bishop gets absolutely stabbed through the back. He gets split in half.
Like Alien, we have a surprise fourth act.
I hate, this is the most unsettling thing. I hate the milk blood of the aliens. He's like coffee. He's like the milk blood. I don't like it.
And it's so funny because I feel like Ian Holm and Lance Henriksen both were like, I don't like milk. Like, why do I have to play the guy who needs to chug milk and spit it out? Apparently it's milk, it's yogurt. But yeah, we get this jump scare, which again is great, very alien-like. And I want to say this is, it's almost like how Wes Craven with his Scream franchise, there's always like a last, like the killer jumps up and they're like,
not
you
dead.
Thought he was dead. Yeah, not dead. Bishop gets stabbed through the chest and there's milk everywhere. And then the queen, which was latched onto the ship this entire time, grabs Bishop. This is another great practical effect. There's almost too much practical special effects that happen on camera that I think you just need to watch the documentary because we can't go over all the mechanics that go into it. But if you like to nerd out on that stuff, I highly, highly recommend checking out the documentary, The Making of Aliens, because if you like that stuff and like seeing how things work and the Imagineering, you'll love it. But she grabs this guy, rips him in half, and like throws his body parts on two different directions. Nick, so much milk.
It's just nonstop milk. And then you see the half of his torso, and it's like tubes and milk everywhere. I hate it. I can watch horror. I can watch body horror. It's totally fine with me. But this milk blood pisses me off. I absolutely hate it. And he's alive the whole time. He's like gurgling up this yogurt milk mixture. He's like
still making plays. He's like grabbing people to keep him from getting sucked down into space.
Oh, it's so unsettling. Well, Ripley realizes I can't take on this queen. Call back to Act 1. Wait a second. Women could do stuff now.
Women can do stuff now.
Exosuit power loader,
Boom.
Which is basically just a big old mechanical
human
person with claw arms. And we're going to fight the queen. We're going to end up grabbing the queen. Like you said, if you want to get into it, watch the documentary. Like, there's so much practical. It's so impressive.
And when the queen like steps off the ship, there was no visual scrubbing. They didn't take out any wires. They didn't take out any cranes. It was hooked up to like this big mechanical rig arm that helped the queen move. But James Cameron shot it in a way where that was disguised by the blocking and the lighting. So a lot of in-camera magic is happening.
This is Stan Winston's baby.
Stan Winston, James Cameron, they're going to work, they're cooking, and we got miniatures in play during this final battle because we're having this struggle. And the loader's like it's not a weapon, it's like a slow-moving blue-collar piece of equipment. It's like if a blue-collar guy grabbed a forklift and started fighting a bear with it. It's like, hey, yeah, the working man. And this is what Sigourney Weaver had notes about for Ripley, because she said, she's not just going to snap into a Slim Jim and be a badass soldier. She's going to be reluctant to pick up a gun, and that's not her forte. She's like part of the Nostromo crew, and then Hicks teaches her how to shoot a gun, and then she only picks up a gun when she needs it. And then the fact that she gets in this power loader is something that's a little bit more on brand for Ripley. She's like, all right, I'm going to beat you up with this big thing that I know. You're welcome to my blue collar turf, bitch. It's very thematic. It's very cool. When she first jumps out in the loader, she's backlit like a silhouette. And in James Cameron's script, it's very non-traditional of how it's written, because screenwriting classes will say, like, don't write in this form or this point of view, and don't be descriptive. It's not a book. It needs to be a skeleton. But if you read James Cameron's script, it's very descriptive, and he directs from the page. And that's not how you're supposed to do it, but that's how I like it. I like to be descriptive from the script and speak poetically. And it says it forms this inhuman silhouette, kind of like her final boss form.
Get away from her, you bitch!
She's going to end up body slamming our queen down into an airlock.
Watch out, watch out, watch out!
And she's going to take the queen down, open up the airlock. This part was ridiculous to me. I'm sorry.
This was Fast and Furious 6 territory, when Dom Toretto jumps off the hood of a car and catches Michelle Rodriguez midair on an overpass.
Yeah, look, I know we're in a sci-fi movie. We've tried to stay somewhat grounded to it all, but space is sucking out the Xenomorph. Everything out of the ship that's in this airlock space is getting thrown out into space. Newt's about to get thrown out, but we have good old Milky son of a bitch Bishop
torso
who's going to grab her and make sure she doesn't. And Ripley is going to climb up out of this vertical airlock, breathing heavily in the vacuum of space, fight against the vacuum of space, get all the way to the top, close the airlock, and everything's fine. I'll forgive it because of how impressive everything's been up to this point.
Hold on. Don't forgive it yet, because the Queen Xenomorph is also holding on to her shoe. And then she does the thing where she puts her, like, the Vince Carter elbow in the basketball rim and, like, power grabs her own elbow against the built-in ladder. So the Xenomorph is also pulling on her with her weight, grabs onto her sick Reeboks, by the way. This is my second favorite pair of kicks that was customly made for an 80s movie. They made them Velcro, so it didn't have shoelaces, so that maybe, I don't know, shoelaces wouldn't get caught on the Xenomorph's claws or whatever. But anyway, sick Reeboks, super 80s high tops. But yeah, the Queen Xenomorph is holding onto her shoe and does float out into space, just like the Xenomorph from the first movie. And then, yes, Ripley continues the climb up, closes the airlock, defied all physics. She Dom Toretto'd that situation.
Very impressive. The fact anyone was breathing in that room is impressive, but we let it go. We have our moment. Bishop split in half. He saved Newt. We trust androids now, so this is good. And something that was happening throughout the movie, obviously Ripley had her nightmares. She had her PTSD. Newt was talking about how she can't dream anymore because she has bad dreams. And so Ripley told her, don't go to sleep, but don't dream. It was this weird thing. And now Newt says, can I dream now, before they go into their cryo chambers? And Ripley says, yeah, we can dream now. They both can go to sleep. They can have a little bit of peace. Aliens is finished.
We have airlock again, pods again, familiar territory, but feels like a brand new franchise. And we hit credits, Nick, and with the credits, we get the funniest names in the credits, and boy, howdy, do I have a great set of names for you. I do got to start out with Ron Cobb, because I called him out in the first Alien movie, so Ron Cobb's kicking us off with the funniest names in the credits. He's followed by Fred Hole, Tip Tipping, Peter Pickering, and Mo Capitters.
Mo Capitters.
Right in the Fred Hole. Nick, we have the funniest names in the credits, signed, sealed, delivered, and that is an absolute, because it is the funniest, because they are the best at making us laugh. And speaking of the best, we have to get into our awards, which is the Mini Pops, which celebrates the best, the worst of the movie. As a reminder, our categories always are Best Weapon, Best Fighter, MVC, Most Valuable Character, our biggest piece of shit, the best death, if it applies, and the best yeet, if it applies. Nick, you're reviewing this movie first, which means I'm revealing my Mini Pop nominees first, and I'm hitting you with them right now. Read them and weep.
Let's see it, James. For your best weapon, you have the M56 Smart Gun. Your best fighter is Ripley. Your wild card for that category is Vasquez. MVC of Ripley. Biggest piece of shit, Burke. Your best death was the Vasquez Gorman self-sacrifice, and your best yeet was Milky Bishop when he got yeeted in half by Xeno Queen.
So lactosey. Nick, it is now your turn to reveal your noms. Hit me with them, please. All right, Nick, your best weapon. You said acid blood. Your best fighter is the Xenomorph Queen. Your MVC is Ripley. Your biggest piece of shit is Burke. Your best death is Bishop, and you don't have the best eat.
All right, James, let's discuss here.
Okay, so piece of shit, lock for Burke. MVC,
Locked.
lock for Rip. For the fighters, as a reminder, for our franchises of the year, we want to see all these guys jump into the Cinedome in the rap party. So as a reminder for Alien, we picked the Xenomorph for the best fighter, and Ripley was our wild card, just in case she wasn't a good fighter. But I do think that she does qualify for this movie because she was badass. I liked her outfit a lot better in this one. But Vasquez, my God, I need her in the Cinedome because she was probably murking the most Xenomorphs. She had the big
has to
gun.
have the biggest body count of deaths.
And just the fact that she pinned that Xenomorph against the wall with her foot and then popped him in the dome, that was insane.
Yeah, I'm into Vasquez. Let's do that.
So we have to retcon the Alien mini pops, and there's no more wild card for Ripley because now she's the best fighter of Aliens. Xenomorph gets Alien, and Vasquez is our wild card. Nick, our weapon, acid blood, technically a defense mechanism, but I'm not going to rule against it. But I think that harness smart gun thing with the motorcycle handlebars, pretty iconic.
It's super iconic. I just thought acid blood, I might have had the best damage in this movie, but the A56 smart gun, I mean,
could have been the Cybertruck too. That
Cybertruck is vicious.
I think the smart gun is too unique to this movie, and it did mow down a lot of Xenomorphs that I personally would go with that one.
Yeah, works for me. Best death. Let's talk about it. Because I was going to say Vasquez Gorman. I'm super into that death. I'm not even sure Bishop actually died.
He didn't die. That's why.
Okay, works for me.
So this was my dilemma. I was like, when Vasquez and Gorman went down, I was like, oh, that could be it. Because I was hoping Burke was going to have an iconic death, but they just cut away. Like we don't see it.
He just got the cut away.
And then so when we see Vasquez and Gorman, it's like, oh, it's a cool redemption moment for Gorman. Vasquez just did fucking work in the vents, and it's very meaningful. And then as soon as I saw Bishop get ripped in half, I said, nope, that is my best death. That is insane with all that milk. But then he didn't die. And I looked it up and I said, does Bishop die in the end of Aliens? And they said, no, he's back in Alien 3. So I was like, I didn't die.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Unfortunately.
I thought he was underutilized. I'm happy I get to see Bishop again this year, but
he did get yeeted in two different directions. I thought that was hilarious. So that was my best yeet.
The Milky Yeet.
Gross. All right, Nick, that is our mini pops, a excellent lineup of awards. And now we need to get into our final section of the podcast, which is the final review. We get there via our sarcastic selling points. I'm going to go first. I said this was Starship Troopers meets Alien.
James, I said Alien with a $sign at the end.
Final review. Fight.
All right, Nick, and we hit the final review. This is where we talk about what the other guys are saying, and then we're going to get into what we think about this movie. Like always, we're starting out with Rotten Tomatoes, and the critics, 94% of the critics thought that this was a great movie.
And James, we're just going to keep it simple here because the people agreed. 94% from the people of Rotten Tomatoes.
And Metacritic, always the toughest crowd. The critics, in particular, are going to give this an 84, which translates to an 8.4 on our Colonel Pop scale.
Sure does. And the people are going to be a little higher than that, but a little lower than Rotten Tomatoes. 8.9 from the Metacritic people.
Everyone seems to agree on the high praise. And now for our bad Birkin. Big jerkin.
Xenos be lurkin', and the Marines are murkin'. And now Hudson's starting to panic. Wait, Vasquez ain't Hispanic.
Ripley wants to smack this bitch up because the Queen split our bishop. So now his milk is spraying after all the egg laying. So let's take this fight to space because we don't like your race of aliens. Score. Brought to you by the Space Cybertruck from IMDb and 8.4.
Are we a hive mind?
We're hiving. We're living. We're jiving out here.
You better believe it.
You know what else is jiving? Nick, what was the funniest Rotten Tomatoes review that you found?
You know what, James? We always do, or I always pick out a low score, and then we laugh at it because we're like, what are you thinking, you idiot? But actually, this time I chose someone who gave this movie a 5 out of 5 stars. This is Kyle F. K. Finley 05 says, why is this not 100%? Shame on you. You know who you are. Winky tongue face. You know who you are.
Yeah. Johnny?
Hey, Johnny! You fucking faggot! Oh!
Okay.
Kyle. Well, now it's time to get into what we think. Nick, you're reviewing this movie first, so you got to hit us with your laughable log line, your final popcorn points, big job, and some quick final thoughts.
My laughable log line was, and I just imagined this almost on the poster of it. It says, aliens, you thought one was bad.
It's more of a tagline.
And James, my popcorn points for this one, I came in pre-popped it at 8. I'm thinking 8.4. 8.5. We're going 8.5 here. We're going 8.5. Very good movie. I had a little bit of trouble with this because I really, 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 really enjoyed the movie. It was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of it as a sequel, and it's a little difficult to... I think James Cameron did a really good job as far as bridging the gap for what he wanted to do. It's just so different. I loved the first Alien. I loved the Ridley Scott vibe of the space horror, the monster movie. This was just so different. Xenomorphs in your face. And again, not different in a bad way, in a very good way it was. It still had very good themes. I think the ending threw me off a little bit. When Ripley went down there with all the guns, it felt very, Rambo, felt very strong fight. I don't know. It just didn't quite fit in her character in my mind for it. So at the beginning, I said brand new franchise because this really feels like what Aliens become. This is sort of what spawns that pipeline into Alien versus Predator and this more of an action horror alien role. So very, very good. I had a little bit of trouble connecting the two. If I put them as two different movies, they're both very, very, very good, fantastic, fun movies with just an overlapping character. So I'm trying to review it like that. 8.5. Awesome movie. I loved it.
Perfect. Okay. I love that take and I love that review and I respect it. But now I'm going to hit you with mine. So Nick, my laughable log line is Ripley is an alien survivor with PTSD, which prompts her employer to promote her to lead alien hunter. And Nick, I pre-popped this at an 8.4 and very tough here because I said, is it better? Is it worse? This is highly debated amongst alien fans. People like the original better. Some people like Aliens better. So I think to walk that line, I am going to stick with an 8.4 because I do think it is not the same, but on the same level as Alien, just in a completely different way. And if I can offer a counter debate to your take on the Ripley third act behaviors, I think it lends itself more to a character arc because Ripley, as we start out, she's all PTSD-ing and she hates this and she's hesitant to pick up the gun. And then as we develop the movie, we find this new Newt character and then she forms a strong bond with this character, and Sigourney Weaver and Carrie Henn in real life formed a strong bond. So there was these big maternal themes. And remember when I talked about Alien, I said, I love how this is a great monster movie, but I didn't necessarily pick up on a clear theme or motif or a story necessarily. It was just a really good monster movie. So this one, although I think the first one is a little bit more nuanced and there's a lot of ingenuity and it inspired the Aliens. There wouldn't be no Aliens without Alien. So I wanted to say Alien was better, but Aliens was such a fun watch. It still looks fantastic. I think the big part about Ridley Scott's Alien was how good it looked especially for the time. You got a big 35 millimeter camera, just making this beautiful picture. And 7 years later, we get a little bit better technology with camera. I don't know. but it still looked fantastic. We had limited CGI and visual effects, a lot of in-camera magic happening. And although it was like goofy and kind of wacky, it still worked. And I did like James Cameron's approach of like, let's do something different, but in the alien world, and let's make something new that's me stepping into the stage. So we always have our re-ranks at the end, and I'm just going to play it safe and put it at the same ranking as Alien at 8.4. And I think time will only tell. Like always, our opinions and our memories and our rankings are going to change of movies as we sit on them or as we compare them to other works. So yeah, I'm going 8.4 for Aliens. I was almost going to go lower, but I thought, it's just as good, but just in a James Cameron way.
I think that's very fair. And that's the I had to separate the two. So if you've never seen these, or if you haven't seen them in a while and you want to go back and rewatch them, when you sit down for one, enjoy it. When you sit down for two, enjoy it in its own way. And, you know, I don't know if I've ever seen two movies back to back in the same universe with different directors be able to pull off such impressive films. So it is
different
special
directors and how they're both great is pretty phenomenal. Yeah,
it's wild. So hats off to the whole crew and everybody and who was involved. It was a wonderful, wonderful movie, both of them.
Wonderful film indeed. And Nick, that is Aliens, our second movie in the franchise of the year. Not disappointing at all. Like people say, one of the greatest sequels ever, and I can see why. So we want to thank you guys for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow us. We are at Just Play It Podcast on Instagram and YouTube. We are at Just Play It Pod on X. Next time we're going to be doing this in this movie. Someone said, hey, stay frosty. And that's going to be similar to next time we do this because you're going to need an ice cube.
You sure are, man. We're going to see some guys in an urban environment is what I'm thinking.
Yep, that's what we're thinking, and it's what is stinking around here. If you can smell what South Central is cooking, it's coming at you. We're heading gone, and remember, stop your grinning and drop your linen. He wants to face hug her, if you know what I mean.
This milk blood pisses me off. I absolutely hate it.
Game over.